Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. It was an ordinary day when things began to change. I had been married for years, living a life I had built carefully, step by step. My husband Mark and I had always had a solid partnership. We shared responsibilities, dreams, and the little victories that make life meaningful. But over time, the passion that once sparked between us had dimmed, and we fell into a comfortable routine. It wasn't that we didn't love each other. It was just that life had become more about managing tasks than sharing moments of joy and excitement. Then, I met Lucas, my son's teammate. At first, I didn't think much of it. He was just a young man, eager, driven, and passionate about soccer. He was always full of energy, the kind of energy that could ignite a room. Over the weeks, we talked casually when I picked up my son from practice, and while the conversations were friendly, there was something that lingered underneath, a sense of connection I couldn't ignore. One evening, after a particularly exhausting week, my son had a match. I'd been at home feeling drained, both physically and emotionally. The excitement of soccer, once something I loved to watch, now felt like another item on my to-do list. When I arrived at the field, Lucas caught my eye from across the field. Smiling as he jogged over, "You came to watch?" he asked, his tone light and warm. I smiled back, grateful for his easygoing nature. Of course, I wouldn't miss it. We exchanged pleasantries, talking about the game and life, and as the match went on, I found myself more engaged. It wasn't just because of the game, it was because of Lucas. There was something in the way he spoke, the way he listened, that made me feel valued. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive in a way I hadn't even realized. I missed Dot. As the game ended and everyone started to head out, Lucas stayed behind to help clean up. My son was chatting with his friends, and I found myself walking over to the sidelines where Lucas was gathering the equipment. "You've got a good team here," I said, watching him work. "Thanks," Lucas replied, looking up at me with a soft smile. They've been playing together for a while. It's all about teamwork. He paused for a moment, then added, "I've always admired the way you support your son. It's not just about the game, but about showing up." Being there, his words caught me off guard. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear something like that. It was simple, but genuine, and it made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time. A sense of appreciation. As I turned to leave, there was a pause between us. I felt that quiet pull again, the same one that had been growing between us. For weeks, it wasn't about attraction. It was about connection, something pure, something real. "You okay?" Lucas asked, noticing the slight hesitation in my step. I smiled and nodded. But inside, I was struggling with emotions I didn't know how to express. He had a way of making me feel seen, heard, and valued. And in that moment, I realized how much I had longed for that. "I'm good," I said softly. "Just thinking." Lucas looked at me for a moment, his expression sincere. "If you ever need someone to talk to, you know where I am." Those words stuck with me long after the game ended, and as I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but think about the warmth of his presence, the way he made me feel important in a way I hadn't felt in years. In the following weeks, I found myself looking forward to the small moments with Lucas. We would chat after practices, share brief conversations about our lives, and slowly, I began to realize how much he had come to mean to me. It wasn't about infatuation or lust, it was about something deeper. It was the emotional connection, the way he made me feel seen. Like I mattered beyond the roles I played in my daily life. But as these feelings grew, so did my guilt. I loved my husband, and I couldn't imagine hurting him. Yet, there was a part of me that felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. It wasn't just the excitement of a new relationship, it was the simple act of being understood, of being valued. And Lucas, in his gentle, kind way, had given me that. One afternoon. After a long practice, we stood together watching my son and his teammates pack up. "Do you ever wonder if you're missing out on something?" Lucas asked, his voice low and thoughtful. Not necessarily in a big way, but in the little moments. I looked at him, surprised by the depth of his question. It was a simple thing, but it resonated with me. I'd spent so much time focusing on others, on responsibilities, that I had forgotten to focus on myself. I think I have, I admitted. I think I've been so caught up in life, I forgot to live it. Lucas smiled gently, as though he understood exactly what I meant. And in that moment, it wasn't just his words, it was his presence. The way he made me feel understood, like my thoughts and feelings mattered, made me realize that I was no longer content with just going through. The motions, we didn't talk about it further that day, but the shift had already occurred. The connection between us was undeniable, but I knew I had to make a decision. The next day, I sat down with my husband, and with all the honesty I could muster, I explained how I had been feeling. It wasn't an easy conversation, and it was filled with tears and uncertainty, but it was a necessary one. I realized that what I needed wasn't another person to make me feel alive. It was myself. I had to rediscover who I was outside of the roles I had played for so long. And I knew that the connection I had with Lucas wasn't a reason to hurt my marriage, but rather a reminder that I needed to take care of myself too. In the end, the love I had for my husband, the life we had built together, was something I valued deeply. But I also knew that I needed to reignite the spark that had faded within me. I wasn't ready to lose myself again, and I was determined to find balance, to embrace the love I had for both my family and myself. The journey wasn't easy, but I learned to honor my feelings and desires in a healthy way. And as time went on, I found peace in the realization that love, in all its forms, is about growth, understanding, and taking care of oneself first. The weeks that followed were filled with reflection, self-discovery, and a lot of conversations, some difficult, others freeing. After the talk with my husband, things were never quite the same. I had opened a door, one I wasn't sure how to close again, but it was a necessary step for both of us. We spent time together trying to rebuild, but there was a shift in our relationship. We knew the love was still there, but it felt like we were both searching for something new within the familiar. As for Lucas, the connection remained, but we both understood that it couldn't be rushed. We had touched on something deeper, something that neither of us fully understood, but we knew it was real. I appreciated him more than I could express, not just for the way he had made me feel, but for the respect he showed me during such a confusing time. Lucas had given me space when I needed it, never pushing, always patient. He continued to be a kind and steady presence in my life, but I made it clear that while our bond was something special, it needed to evolve with time, with care, and with honesty. At home, I began to pay more attention to my own emotional needs. I started spending time alone, doing things I had forgotten I loved: reading, hiking, even just sitting in a cafe and letting my thoughts wander. I needed to reconnect with who I was before all of the distractions of life had taken over. In these moments of solitude, I began to realize that the person I had been searching for all along was me. I had neglected parts of myself for so long, and I needed to nurture those pieces again. One evening, Mark and I sat down for dinner after a long day of work. The kids were at a friend's house, and for the first time in months, it felt like we were alone with each other. The conversation flowed easily, but this time, it wasn't about the day-to-day tasks or the things we needed to fix. It was about us. It was about where we had been, where we were now, and where we wanted to go. I've been thinking a lot about us, I said, my voice softer than usual, about how we've been so caught up in everything else that we haven't really focused on what we have. I know I haven't been the best partner lately, but I want to change that. Mark looked at me, his face softening. I've noticed too, he replied, but we can work through this. I want us to be happy again. Maybe we've both been too focused on everything else, on what we think we need. But we've always been good together, and I know we can get back to that. His words touched me deeply. I realized then that love wasn't always about the grand gestures or the intense passion that burned hot in the beginning. Sometimes it was about recognizing the quiet moments, the things that kept you together when everything else felt uncertain. The next few weeks passed, and I found myself in a better place emotionally. Mark and I began to reconnect, slowly but surely. We started having more honest conversations about what we wanted from our relationship, and while it wasn't perfect, it felt like a fresh start. We weren't pretending anymore. We were facing the truth of who we were, and we were willing to work on it. And then there was Lucas. As time went on, I realized that the connection I felt with him wasn't something I needed to act on or rush. It was something I could hold in my heart, something that reminded me of the person I used to be before responsibilities took over. Lucas had shown me that I was capable of feeling deeply, of being vulnerable, and of wanting more than just the routine of everyday life. And for that, I would always be grateful. One day, after another long meeting with my team, I found myself in the office alone again. I hadn't seen Lucas for a while as he'd been focused on other projects. As I walked past the conference room, I saw him standing by the window, looking out at the city. "I've missed our talks," I said as I stepped inside. Lucas turned and smiled warmly. "I have too," he replied. "How have you been?" "I've been better," I said, taking a seat across from him. "I've been working on some personal things. It's been a journey, but I think I'm on the right track." He nodded, understanding in his gaze. "I'm glad to hear that. You've always been someone who's passionate about the things that matter to you. It's good to see you taking care of yourself." His words struck me. It wasn't just that he saw me as someone valuable in his life. It was that he respected me, respected the process of growth I was going through. That realization meant more than I could put into words. I had come to understand that sometimes love didn't require a dramatic gesture or a life-changing decision. Sometimes it was just about respecting the journey, allowing each other the space to evolve and grow. I've come to realize that passion isn't always about the immediate spark, I said, my voice soft. Sometimes it's about letting things grow at their own pace, appreciating what's there without forcing it. Lucas smiled. "I think you're right. There's no rush. We've both got our own paths to walk, and I'm happy to be a part of yours, even if it's in a smaller way than before." I smiled back, grateful for his understanding. We had been through something together, and while it might not have led to anything more, it had changed me in ways I couldn't ignore. It had reminded me of the importance of connection, of taking the time to truly see and appreciate someone for who they were. As I left the office that evening, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. My marriage was still a work in progress, but it was one I was willing to put effort into. The bond with Lucas had reminded me that life was about the connections we made, the way we treated each other, and the way we chose to move forward. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't understood before. The most passionate love wasn't always the one that burned the hottest. Sometimes it was the love that grew slowly, steadily over time, that proved to be the most fulfilling of all. As time passed, I found a rhythm in my life again, balancing my marriage, my work, and the remnants of my connection with Lucas. I had accepted that some things in life were not meant to be rushed. My relationship with Mark began to feel more solid, built on mutual respect and understanding. We spent more time together, trying to reconnect in ways we hadn't before. It wasn't fireworks every day, but it felt real. Slowly, we were rediscovering the love we'd lost, not in grand gestures, but in the everyday moments. Yet, in the back of my mind, Lucas remained a constant presence. He was always supportive, always encouraging. We continued to talk, share ideas, and laugh like we had when everything had first started. There was something about him, something that made me feel free and understood. But I kept reminding myself that the intensity of our earlier connection was behind us. It had been a catalyst for change, but now it was just a chapter in the story of my life. One evening, after a particularly long and taxing day at work, I decided to take a walk to clear my mind. The cool evening air was refreshing, and the city buzzed quietly around me. As I walked along the familiar route, I noticed something unexpected. Mark was there, standing at the edge of the park, waiting for me. His presence wasn't unusual, but the fact that he had found me at that very moment, unannounced, made my heart skip a beat. "Mark, what are you doing here?" I asked, surprised but also warmed by the gesture. "I knew you'd be walking here," he said, his tone almost casual, but his eyes held something else. "I needed to talk to you." A sense of unease crept over me, but I tried to shake it off. "Okay, what's on your mind?" He looked at me for a moment, as if contemplating. His words carefully. "I've been thinking about us, about everything we've been through. I know we've had our share of challenges, but I need you to know something." His words hung in the air, thick with tension, and I could tell something was weighing on him. My thoughts raced as I tried to anticipate what he was going to say. "Layla," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper, "I've been keeping something from you. Something I should have told you sooner." My heart skipped, and a wave of apprehension washed over me. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice shaky. Mark hesitated, as if unsure how to continue, but finally he spoke. I've been having an affair." My world seemed to stop. The words hit me like a physical blow, and I could feel my breath catch in my throat. "What?" I barely managed to say. "Who?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared at me, his face filled with a mix of guilt and regret. "It's someone I've known for a while. Someone who's been in my life. And I made a mistake." The ground beneath me seemed to tilt. My mind raced, trying to process the sudden truth. The truth I hadn't expected, the truth I hadn't been prepared to hear. I felt as if the air had been sucked out of me, and for a long moment, I couldn't find the words to respond. The pain and shock were too overwhelming. Mark reached out, trying to take my hand, but I pulled away. "How long?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "Only a few months," he said softly. "But it's over now. I've ended it. It's done. And I need you to know, I'm sorry. I should have been honest with you from the start." I stared at him, my mind a swirl of emotions. "You didn't think I deserved to know?" I asked, my voice filled with disbelief. "After everything we've been through, you kept this from me?" His face crumpled with regret, and he shook his head. "I'm sorry, Layla. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't want to destroy what we had. But I should have been honest. I should have told you before it went too far." I took a step back, feeling the weight of his confession sink in. "I don't know what to say," I whispered. "I thought we were rebuilding. I thought we were moving forward. But now you are." Mark's eyes filled with sorrow as he reached for me again. "I know I've made a mess of things, but I need you to understand. I love you. I've always loved you. This affair, it was a mistake. And I'm here, Layla. I want to fix things. I want to make it right." I stood there, frozen, the world around me spinning. The love I thought we had, the connection we were rebuilding, it all felt like a lie now. My thoughts drifted back to Lucas, the way he had made me feel, the way he had opened up a part of me I had forgotten. The truth hit me harder than I had expected. The relationship with Mark was not the only one that had shifted. Lucas had, in his own way, helped me realize what I had been missing, what I'd neglected in myself and in my marriage. Just as I was about to say something, anything to make sense of it all, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Lucas. I hesitated for a moment before reading it. It was short, simple, and to the point. "Are you okay? I'm here if you need to talk." The timing was uncanny. Here I was, standing in front of Mark, who had just confessed his betrayal, and Lucas was reaching out, offering his support in the most unexpected way. It felt like fate was stepping in, guiding me in a direction I hadn't expected. The world seemed to hold its breath as I stood there, caught between two worlds, one of betrayal and the other of understanding, connection and passion. In that moment, I realized that life was not about holding on to what was comfortable or familiar. It was about choosing what made me feel alive, what made me feel truly seen. And as much as I cared for Mark, as much as I wanted to make things right, I knew that I couldn't ignore the pull towards something different, something that wasn't about fixing the past, but building something new. I need some time, I said softly, my voice steady but filled with emotion. I need to figure out what comes next. I need space. Mark nodded, his face filled with a mixture of pain and acceptance. I understand. Take the time you need. Layla, I'll be here waiting. And with that, I turned and walked away, my heart torn but resolute. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that this was the first step toward a future where I could finally be true to myself. And as I walked away, the message from Lucas felt like a lifeline, a reminder that sometimes the answers are waiting for us in the most unexpected places.